let's welcome onto stage Jeremy Fisher, Global Head of Enterprise at Cardano Foundation. Jeremy, big round of applause, please, for every participant. Big round of applause for every participant. Remember, everyone here got through the rain like you. Everyone here is a hero, including all of you. Okay, Luke Dasher, hopefully I'm saying that correct, CTO of Ocean Mining. Luke, welcome on stage. And moderator, Nikita Sachev, the best PR entrepreneur in the Middle East. Ready, Nikita? Okay, it's all yours. Go for it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Awesome. Hi, everybody, and congratulations on making it despite the floods. I was completely submerged underwater yesterday. My car almost stalled, so kind of crazy. Worst weather ever recorded in Dubai. So I apologize on behalf of Dubai as a resident. But thank you for making it, and I'm very excited about this panel discussion. To be honest, this is a last-minute kind of put together, bit impromptu, which I love. And I love the fact that I had a chance to speak to both of you earlier. And I love the fact that I have a Bitcoin maxi and one of the largest altcoins on the same panel. So this is going to be very interesting and entertaining. So why don't we start off with a couple of introductions. I'll go first, and then you guys can introduce yourselves to the audience. My name is Nikita Sachev. I'm from Texas. I've been in Dubai 3.5 years. I'm the CEO and founder of Luna Media Corporation, which houses 6 companies. Our bread and butter is Luna PR, which is a PR and marketing agency focused on Web3. We've been around since 2017. We've worked with over 600 clients, and just very passionate about crypto. Headquartered in Dubai, offices in Miami, Singapore, London, and have a team of 100 employees now. So I'd like to say that we're one of the leading PR agencies. And I'll hand it over to you guys now to introduce yourselves.
My name is Luke Dasher. Been a Bitcoin developer since early 2011. Started one of the very first Bitcoin mining pools, at the time named Elagius. Relaunched it last year under the new name Ocean. And I've been working in the space for well over a decade, with particular emphasis at times on mining, but also other areas as well.
Wow, great. My name is Jeremy Firster, not Laster, and I am the Global Head of Enterprise at Cardano Foundation. I'm originally from the United States, but I've been spending the past 14 years in Taiwan, and it's a great tech hub in Asia, so a lot of access to engineering talents and innovators for the global blockchain industry, especially in DeFi. I've participated in the blockchain industry since 2014 in corporate banking, where I opened a bank account for a cryptocurrency exchange. And since mid-2016, I started getting involved a lot more heavily in thinking about what opportunities exist with blockchain technologies outside of payments and outside of your traditional financial applications.
Awesome, thank you. So I had a panel on Monday with some of the top influencers in the space, and we were asking about what's happening after the halving, their take on it. And I think as influencers, the perspective is very different to maybe you guys who have been in the industry for so long. Luke, since 2011, bought your first 50 Bitcoin for $20, which is very cool. I want to get your take on what's going to happen after the halving. Personally, I feel like it's a little bit different. Like, you can't really compare it to the other halvings because we have so many more institutions that have come in with the Bitcoin ETFs. But what's your take? Halving is this Saturday. What's going to happen after that?
The income that miners receive from the Bitcoin network will be, the subsidy part will be cut in half, so they'll probably receive about 60% of what they received today. But with the Bitcoin price increasing over the last several months, I think it's been more than doubled. I don't expect it to have a big impact on the industry.
So just kind of Bitcoin's going to go sideways, no really price movement there. But what about on the mining side? Are we going to see less miners, some companies kind of go under?
I doubt it, because they'll be making what they were making 6 months ago instead of what they've been making for the last few months.
Jeremy, what's your take?
I mean, these are always key milestones globally. It definitely brings a lot more interest into the space. And I hope what it will do is also increase a lot of knowledge as to what it means to have a Bitcoin halving event. I mean, that's something that, when people first come in, it's generally due to market forces and incentives and thinking about prices. But there's so much more once you get past that about the infrastructure, how everything operates, and other opportunities. What I keep hearing about with Bitcoin is considerations to deploy smart contracts on Bitcoin. And now we're thinking a lot more too on, can we have ordinals on Bitcoin? Can we create digital assets? And that's creating a lot more creativity within development circles on how do we make an on-chain application. And personally, being from Cardano, there's great synergies as a UTXO blockchain and Bitcoin as a UTXO blockchain. So as those conversations are having, what I hope to see is a lot more collaboration with developers in the Cardano ecosystem, joining those discussions and sharing past experiences and thinking about a different framework and how you can deploy a similar application.
So that's an interesting topic. I like that you kind of steered into this discussion because, so I met Luke at Satoshi Roundtable a couple of months ago, and at the time I was very bullish about ordinals. And we had this discussion, and Luke's team completely changed my perception on ordinals. Whilst I feel like it's fantastic to see utility on Bitcoin, I learned from Luke's team and Ocean that Bitcoin was created for peer-to-peer transactions, and ordinals are kind of using Bitcoin as storage, and that's kind of slowing down the transactions. Luke, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on this, since this is totally your forte.
Sure. Ordinals are, to put it simply, really just another altcoin that's, instead of using proof of work or proof of stake, they're using proof of attacking Bitcoin. Instead of having their own blockchain, they shove their data into Bitcoin's blockchain and make Bitcoin less usable to Bitcoin users.
Yeah, very well said. I mean, I think when we talk about comparisons and the mission statement, why does Bitcoin exist? It's very much fundamentally agreed upon that Bitcoin is here as digital gold. Bitcoin is here as a borderless payment network, and not much else. When we talk about building an application, we talk about data capacity and what type of solution can you build inside a transaction. And Bitcoin had a space for a memo, which was 70 bytes of data. And that was to add some sort of context to what a payment is. Now, the world took that 70 bytes window and said, well, look, I can create a data hash that is 65 bytes of data. And that's going to represent healthcare records. That's going to represent anything as a real-world application or an asset. And look at this. It's stored on Bitcoin. It's immutable, and it's publicly accessible. But no one can interact with this data hash. If that's all you see, then you don't know anything beyond the string of letters and numbers for what that represents. Cardano is designed very differently, where instead of 70 bytes of data, we have 16,000 bytes in a transaction. And that additional capacity allows us to be more creative in thinking about context to what an application is. So it becomes much more accessible to end users and to a wider network of participants.
Luke, what are your thoughts? I saw you shaking your head a little bit.
the 70 bytes of data you mentioned was actually not for memos. It was there to prevent people from doing it in a more harmful way, and it's actually more like 40 bytes. So people
okay.
would shove these hashes as a fake payment address, which would then be stored in the UTXO set necessarily because it's pretending to be a public key of a recipient. And so this was something that, because there was no actual recipient, it would have to be stored in this UTXO set by every single user forever. So rather than that, the up return trick was added kind of to give an alternative place which does not need to be kept around in the same way. But it was never intended to be actually used. It was actually, when that was introduced, it was explicitly stated this is not something that's meant to be used. It's just to mitigate the damage that's being done today. That was back in 2014. And a large part of the problem with ordinals is that they've used a vulnerability in the latest node software to bypass that limit. That's why they're able to store several kilobytes of data.
I mean, whether ordinals on Bitcoin are a good thing or a bad thing, good thing because they're providing more utility, or bad thing because they're eating up space or attacking the protocol, I think that's like a separate discussion. But we do have so many different blockchain protocols for NFTs. So why do people want to see it on Bitcoin in particular? Why do people want to see more utility for Bitcoin? We have so many other blockchain protocols to choose from. And then, Luke, I'm curious to hear your thoughts, because on one hand, you're a Bitcoin maxi, you're very pro Bitcoin. On the other hand, you don't want to see like any more utility apart from peer-to-peer transactions on Bitcoin. So don't you feel like more projects, more altcoins coming out are actually going to like kind of leave Bitcoin alone?
There are ways to add utility to Bitcoin. Ordinals does not do that.
Like what other utility?
Like, for example, you could have, if you wanted a data storage layer, you could have a merge mine chain that is meant for data storage.
Like layers.
Right.
Okay.
And there are multiple ways to do things like this. It's just that Ordinals does it in the way that's the most harmful to Bitcoin.
Let's talk about the use of blockchain and enterprise. Here in the UAE, we were discussing earlier, it's so far advanced compared to where we are from, the States, where the technology is already implemented in so many places, such as the airport, Dubai Police, storing passports as NFTs. I mean, even in the States, the top 100 largest companies today have integrated blockchain technology. And whether it's their own private protocol, their private ledger, or a public ledger, they have all integrated blockchain. Louis Vuitton has an Aura blockchain, their Aura blockchain, which tracks counterfeits. So the technology is amazing. There's no doubt in that. And I'm curious, Jeremy, how is Cardano, is this an area for Cardano to kind of look into how to integrate with enterprise to be the blockchain of choice?
It's a strong interest of Cardano, and mainly for that is because we try to think about, what are the key problems to solve with deploying an application on a blockchain, and the number one issue is commonly security. So is your tech stack itself secure, and are you able to have custom applications at ease and at scale? And it's not just about how the protocol functions, but it's also about the market infrastructure that connects to the blockchain. So how do you interact within Explorer? What type of developer tools exist within the ecosystem to allow a company to easily integrate with the blockchain? Which part of the blockchain do you need to actually manage? Is your infrastructure managed in-house? Are you using APIs with third-party services? All of this comes down to, architecture decisions on how companies like Louis Vuitton want to manage blockchain assets. And overall, I would say that the general goal is to see that these type of solutions are ran on public permissionless blockchains. Back in 2018, private permissioned blockchains was quite the craze, and I would say mainly that was because the thought process about what are the risks, what are the potential threats, is there a security vulnerability that I'm not aware of? So I will start with a private chain so I maintain this control. And when you're moving or transitioning to public permissionless technology, that's public infrastructure. And there are many benefits from that, especially the fact that there's a giant feedback loop. So today, public blockchains, many of them, are at similar quality levels to the experience that you would have with private blockchains. So that kind of problem itself is somewhat being solved. And then secondly, it's many companies, when they do things on a private network, they do this for kind of an internal experience and getting learning points. If they did it first on a public blockchain, there's reputation risks if something goes bad, right? So they need to have their experience be increased, and then communicate more with kind of the core group of developers and users in public blockchains.
And what industries are you most excited about? Where are you seeing the most acceptance of this innovation take place?
Yeah, so I think a big area is often misunderstood. So real world assets. People think that if they just connect something to a token, then that's real world assets on blockchain. But you're not really changing anything with the operating model. So when I think about blockchains, I think about traceability and verification systems. And how is it that we can have a database that exists on a blockchain, and that on-chain code is referencing off-chain code and able to confirm certain characteristics about the originality of an asset or the authenticity of data that's being shared within an ecosystem.
And Luke, so your argument is that you feel like Bitcoin can do that, but it should be a layer on Bitcoin?
More or less.
Okay.
Also, a lot of these utility that's being accomplished with things like ordinals are really just, at the end of the day, only useful for scams. And that's part of why they want to do it on Bitcoin in the first place, is they want to take advantage of Bitcoin's reputation to push their scams on other people.
Like, you mean when they launch a cryptocurrency, particularly? Because not all blockchain protocols have a token, right? Like, not all ledgers need to have a token. So do you feel like it's a token that's a scam?
For the most part, yeah. There are very few use cases for a token other than currency, which Bitcoin already has, and scams.
And so apart from, like, for institutions, for large enterprise coming in, apart from using or holding Bitcoin as a safe haven asset, you feel like if they want to integrate a blockchain, whether that's for supply chain management or putting data on a ledger, it should be on Bitcoin. Like, it can be on Bitcoin.
If it's just something that one company is using privately, there's no reason to involve Bitcoin at all or have any kind of a token. It could just be, there's no reason to make that more than a private blockchain.
Okay.
I mean, what's more important about which blockchain do you use? It's when you're doing a supply chain application, are you following any sort of industry standard? And is that industry standard something that exists as well on that blockchain network? So the reason for that is about how you can parse this information, or how in a decentralized ecosystem, how an explorer or wallet will take this information and make it viewable to an end user. And without industry standards, then you just have a lot of custom solutions, and it's very fragmented in terms of the overall quality of use. right? I mean, a big part about blockchains is the ability to make digital assets that can then be used by another third party in that ecosystem, right? So we commonly think about this with exchanges as part of the ecosystem. But if you want to use that asset for some other purpose, like for example, in the country of Georgia, I'm working on a wine traceability project. And right now it's about authenticating the proof of origin of these wines. And these blockchain records, eventually I want to use this for doing customs clearance and having that process be more streamlined. But if there's no standards, then you can't really create much more use to those assets. And that's all data standards, and that's thinking about what exists in the Web 2 space and how we can merge that as to a Web 3 application.
That's very interesting. I really like to see real-world applications of blockchain take place, and I think from wine traceability to healthcare records, which you mentioned earlier, I've mentioned this several times when I talk, but my dad was born in a hospital that didn't exist later. My dad was born in the slums of India, and the hospital that he was born in didn't exist when he was in his 50s. And eventually, when he tried to get, I'm second generation American, but when he tried to get a residency in Singapore, he didn't have a birth certificate to show for. And right there and then, I was like, this is so backwards. Like, a hospital shuts down, and it's like you don't exist anymore. It's like we're relying on a piece of paper for our IDs. So I really do appreciate blockchain technology coming in, like real-world applications like this taking place. Do you feel like in the States, regulation is kind of hampering the growth? Because let's say for Cardano, I'm not too sure, have they've classified several cryptocurrencies as securities. So do you feel that kind of, is a bit daunting for enterprises to come in and actually utilize a blockchain aspect, even though it has nothing, I mean, even though they don't need to have anything to do with the crypto aspect?
It's very broadly viewed globally on the status of different cryptocurrencies. But not every cryptocurrency needs a blockchain, but all blockchains need a cryptocurrency. And
you think?
Yes, as
all
a blockchain.
blockchains need a cryptocurrency?
Yes.
Why?
Because you need to have a cryptocurrency that's paying for the transaction fees. It's providing you that overall level of security for the network. I mean, you don't just want to add information to a blockchain where you're spamming a network and just adding tons of data without a cryptocurrency.
Is that for public blockchains?
Yes, that's for public blockchains. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes a cryptocurrency doesn't need to be decentralized, doesn't have to have so many nodes operating, right? And that's usually when it comes to the conversations on, is this a security or not, right? But you know, we need to think more about the diversity of utility that's being generated on a blockchain. And real-world applications is about data, and it's about assets, and it's about the ability to share this information with third parties on a blockchain. It's understanding what is the values of a decentralized network that has like immutability in its data records.
After all, data is the most expensive commodity. And Luke, what are your thoughts, final thoughts on this? We've run out of time, but want to get your final takeaways. Do all blockchains need a crypto? Do all cryptocurrencies need a blockchain?
It really depends on the scope of the word blockchain you're using. In a very broad sense, you have things like source code repositories, which can be argued to be a blockchain. In a more narrow sense, the blockchain, particularly used for Bitcoin, the entire purpose of it is to prevent double spending. And so if you don't have a token, you don't really have no need for the blockchain in that case.
Awesome, awesome. I think we've run out of time, but any final piece of advice for the audience on the halving, post-halving, they want to enter the industry? Any advice? stay with Bitcoin?
I mean, my advice is there are no wrong questions. And if you're interested on any topic within the blockchain industry, try to seek out answers yourself and try to seek out answers from the people that you know. And the more diverse you get feedback, the better conclusions you're able to make. It's all open source technologies, and there is no real crystal ball that tells us the future of what's going to happen. But we all have ideals for what we're trying to achieve.
All right, so I guess let's take that advice, and if you have any questions, please feel free to speak to our panelists after this stage. Can we take questions? Someone's raising their hand, I guess.
Hello. My name is Suren. I made many fintech projects, and I have some question regarding the public and private chains. How you are deciding between them? Because on private chain you need to define your DAO, and you are coming to regulations things and much certification part. And in many cases, the businesses don't need this because public chain provides its defined DAO mechanism, which is more preferred for public chains, and it already certified in some pieces. What you mind on this? Why we need to have a private chain if it's a blockchain and it could be publicly?
So the question was between public and private chains, how would a company choose between a public and private, and why would a company need a private chain in the first place?
Yes, because the whole process, entire process, is 2-3 times complex to achieve in private chains to complete all these certification parts and define your DAO processes. And that's all.
So maybe you guys can answer that.
The example I gave a few minutes ago was for source code management, and that's useful just to keep track of all the different variations, the versions of the source code as you work on it for developers. As far as private token blockchains, I'm not sure if there is a purpose.
If my understanding is right, it's achievable even in public chain. This is not matter you run it public or private. The thing that you need to have a DAO which need to be past all the certification processes. After that, you can run something on your private chain which could be trusted from other people as a blockchain.
So if you have something that is focused on internal operations, a private blockchain may be good for that. But that's more for some sort of cost efficiency internally with a very specific network. But outside of that, like a DAO definitely should be on a public blockchain, because if you're making decisions, especially when you're voting and you're talking about the directions of funding going from source A and source B to source C, you want that whole process to be tamper-proof. And you also want that whole process as a DAO to be able to grow with a diverse group of participants. And so normally when we think about tokenization and we think about blockchain, what we're really thinking about is IT system integrations. So there's a common bridge for these type of processes. That's not specifically to a DAO, right? But let's take voting as a very good use case. And Blockchain Life does have a voting tool. What would be the benefits of using a public blockchain or a DAO to have a voting system? What are the potential risks that this would solve, or the problems that would be avoided from having a solution done on chain?
Okay,
We
awesome.
gotta cut it off,
yeah,
unfortunately.
we've run out of time, but feel free to speak to our panelists when they come off the stage, and I'm sure they can provide you more insight. I apologize for cutting the panel from here, but thank you so much for listening. And
Big round of applause, please.
Thank you.
Nikita, great job.